Alright folks, how you doing? So I just thought I'd make a quick video answering, the question, why did Alec Baldwin do his latest interview? The answer is because he's a narcissist. And he's an upper lesser type A narcissist, to be more specific. Now, upper lesser A's tend to be party animals, the dog with six dicks, to quote H.G. Tudor. They tend to have a list of lovers as thick as the phone book. I mean, they pretty much go through every name in the phone book, you know. Especially when they're young. But, being the party animal type, Alec Baldwin doesn't, in my mind, fit the profile of a murderer. Does that mean he's not a killer? That's a separate issue. Did he commit manslaughter? I don't know. I don't know the legal system, so I can't speak to that. Did he deliberately shoot that producer, Helena Hutchins? In my opinion, absolutely not. No. Because it's quite a stretch to go from a party animal to a murderer. Now lesser narcissists tend to be pretty chaotic and violent and impulsive people, but they're also very irresponsible. So when you find out like Alec Baldwin was the executive producer on Rust, and you hear reports about safety and health and safety and conditions not being up to standard, that fits perfectly, because upper lesser type A's tend to be very disorganized and irresponsible. They're not really the type that you want to put in charge of anything, but when Alex says like he invited Helena to dinner with him and the director, that is probably true. I can see that happening because upper lesser type A's tend to have more charm and charisma than the rest of the lesser narcissists. Like the lower lessers are just straight out thugs and bullies. Mid lessers somewhat that, but they tend to be more sulky and moody, but they're still pretty violent. Upper lesser type B's I've covered before, Alex Jones, for example, Walter Sobchak, Donald Trump, all blustering and big man, and biggest and the best at everything. I mean, if you made a drinking game out of Donald Trump's boasts, you'd pass out and piss your pants before the 10-minute mark. But, upper lesser type A's, good example would be like Charlie Sheen or Charlie Harper, Paris Hilton would be another one, Jay Cartwright from the Inbetweeners. Those are your upper lesser A's. That's the kind of personality that you're dealing with here, but they are not organized and they're not very bright either. Now, the reason why Alec did the interview, in my opinion, after going on camera and saying that he can't talk about it, he goes on camera and talks about it. Can he not see the contradiction? No, he can't, because his narcissism won't allow him to see it. Like all narcissists, he genuinely believes that he is not responsible. He genuinely believes that it's not his fault, even if it is. Why? Because his narcissism rewrites history, and lesser narcissists are not good at long-range thinking and long-range planning. So he's not doing the interview thinking, oh, this might hurt my credibility when this case goes to trial, this might damage my defense. He's thinking, I need to assert control over this situation, over the interviewer, over the audience, over the population. Why? Because simply, he's a narcissist. Narcissists have to rewrite history, have to control everything, have to rewrite the narrative, and they have to be the ones who are guiding and controlling things. So when you hear reports of him from other people who've worked with him in the past, of him being like controlling and temperamental and all this sort of thing, the one thing that lesser narcissists are absolutely not is manipulative. They're not manipulators. So get that out your head. That's not the case. Mid-range, absolutely, they are master manipulators, especially when you go up to the higher levels of mid-range. But lesser narcissists are not manipulative. With them, what you see is what you get. They're blunt instruments, It really is what it appears to be with them, They do have a certain charm and charisma, which is completely lacking in the other lesser narcissists. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever come along and said Donald Trump was charming with a straight face. But, upper lesser type A's, if you think like Charlie Harper, like I said, from 2.5 Men, does have a certain charisma, does have a certain charm to him, sort of thing. If you ask most people who've watched The Inbetweeners, who's your favourite character? A lot of people will inevitably say Jay, and he's an upper lesser type A. You see what I mean? But they're not very bright. They really are not very bright. They don't think ahead to what they're doing. They just need to control what's happening in the moment. And being lesser narcissists as well, they do have a temper. We've seen this with Alec Baldwin getting into fights with reporters and all this sort of thing, and getting into spats with his fellow actors. Yeah, because he's a narcissist. He's a lesser narcissist. He needs to control the narrative. He needs to control the environment. He needs to control everything. So the reason why he's doing an interview, plain and simple, after he said that he can't talk about it, he goes and talks about it. Well, all narcissists are hypocrites. Absolutely. Lower and mid-range especially are very hypocritical. Graders can hide it better. Ultras you would never suspect, but this hypocrisy and all this and doing things which are very poorly thought out is absolutely the trademark of a lesser narcissist. They tend to lurch from disaster to disaster in their lives at times. Not so much the case with upper lesser narcissists, definitely the case with lower and middle lesser narcissists, but the upper lessers tend to be more successful, and it's kind of a small way usually. Sometimes there are exceptions, but like Donald Trump's one example. Alec Baldwin's certainly another example because he's had a very successful career. But just to kind of recap, charming, not manipulative at all, not organised in the least. Absolutely not. They tend to go back on their promises. They'll promise you the moon and deliver a light bulb. The promise they'll be at your birthday party, and then like you're looking at your watch, 3 hours has gone by, there's no sign of them. This is very typical because like upper lesser A's are very vacuous individuals. They're basically airheads. They tend to come from money as well. That's another thing. They tend to come from something of an exception with lesser narcissists. They are kind of unique. Upper lesser A's are quite different, in fact, in lots of kind of subtle ways from the other lesser narcissists. They still can be bullies, but not to the same extent as the other types. But they tend to get very distracted very easily. They're like cats that look at this shiny thing and they just have to have it, and then when they get it, they don't know what to do with it. They're dogs chasing cars, basically. They just go from minute to minute. And that's the type of personality that they are. It is what it is. I mean, they're lovable idiots, basically. They're affable arseholes, to quote H.G. Tudor. So, do I think that Alec Baldwin is a murderer? No. Is he guilty of manslaughter? Probably. Who knows? I mean, really, that's not really for me to say. That would have to be for the jury to decide. Is he responsible for conditions on the set of Rust? To a great extent, he is, but I don't know who thought that was a good idea, because upper lesser type A's are very chaotic, disorganized, and airheads. And like I said, they get distracted. Like, well, what's that over there? And they just go off and chase it, But it is what it is. That's my thoughts and opinions. But try to understand what narcissism is before you jump to conclusions and jump to judgments, and realize that lesser narcissists are not really liars, but they do rewrite history in their head because, narcissism is a self-defense mechanism. He believes what he's saying. He really does believe what he's saying. He believes it is the truth. Is it the truth? No, but it is his truth. And when you're dealing with narcissists, the truth is a very flexible concept with a lesser narcissist, let's put it that way. They have their version, and they really believe it, and they'll stick by it, but, everybody else in the room kind of knows that that's not quite what happened, but, it is what it is. I'm sure everything will come out in the end. Anyway, thanks for watching.